Day number one, working on the Ninja for real. So getting ready to take off the fairings and see what we can find inside. Alright, now that we got the plastics off, they were in a little bit worse shape than I thought. Took out one or two of these screws and they basically fell out. A couple of these hex bolts are still hanging on this side. Nothing jumps out as immediately concerning. It actually looks all pretty good to be there. You know, the radiator, oil cooler. Let's see the other side. I guess that'd be the clutch cover here is in really good shape. I almost wonder if that's been repainted. It doesn't look, it's not the cleanest paint finish, but it does look good. Yep, so basically about what we expect to see here. Let's continue to tear into the engine. So I was planning to label the spark plug wires, cylinders left to right, 1, 2, 3, 4, to know which ones they were before I started, pulling these coils to see if I could look in the cylinder. But they're already labeled. With these, it's actually a way better job than I was even planning on doing. I can just, these little yellow numbers, I could just leave these in here. They do look to be correct, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I don't know if that's good or bad that someone's already been in here. I mean, I guess there's really no getting around that a bike this age has been worked on at least once, but hopefully it wasn't major. So let's try to pull one of those plugs and see what we got. Alright, was able to get down into the head with a, 5/8. Always confusing how spark plugs are the only non-metric things pretty much probably on this whole bike. But yeah, fit way better than the 16 mil I tried first. And spark plug coming out. Let's see if we can pick it up. No. May have to get some kind of magnetic pickup. So I took out the 4 spark plugs, tried to look in the cylinders. All I could see was pretty heavy corrosion, or not corrosion, carbon buildup. So that looks okay. I also labeled them, the plugs, in case it would be of any, diagnostic type use. I don't know if it will be or not, but a little worrying that the plugs were all covered in oil. So they looked fine, like in terms of they weren't, burnt or whatever, but I'm not really worried about that because I'll probably replace them anyway. But just, it seemed like the last thing that happened on this bike was maybe someone put oil in the cylinders to turn it over. So that's a little concerning. But that's actually what I'm going to do next too, try a little Marvel Mystery Oil in the cylinders and try to crank it over by hand, I guess. Alright, so I put some Marvel Mystery Oil down the cylinders, just like everybody says to do, I don't know why. It does smell amazing though. It smells like one of those wintergreen mints. I bet it tastes good too. But so yeah, I don't particularly like that I didn't have a filter to go all the way into the cylinder, but you know what, if it gums up the plug hole, I'll just have to stick some rags down there and clean it up. So next thing will be getting one of these covers off and see if I can turn over the engine. Okay, so I'm taking off these bolts on this timing cover, I guess you call it, and I've messed this up before. These are not all necessarily the same length, so I made this little cardboard diagram to stick the bolts in here so I won't have to worry about putting the wrong one back in the wrong place. It's a simple thing, but I'm a beginner and that's just one more thing to not have to worry about. I don't know if that's a clue or not. It smells really bad. Maybe not the worst engine I've ever opened up and smelled, but it's definitely an old, nasty oil smell. Not a, recently changed out oil smell, which is fine. And this crank bolt here is, I found out it fits a 24 millimeter, so luckily I have one of those. And found out the bolts are actually all exactly the same length. So thank you, Kawasaki, and no need to make this weird elaborate cardboard if anybody else tries this later. I think I'm going to put the timing cover back on while I wait for the oil to penetrate the cylinders, just because it's probably not good to have the engine sitting open, you know, in this dusty workshop. Who knows what could get in there. Alright, well here on the other side, maybe call this the crankcase cover. There's 12 bolts, and I made another cardboard diagram, and it actually did come in handy because they're all crazy different sizes, at least 3 or 4 different sizes there. It would have taken me forever to get the correct permutation back in order, so I'm gonna see if I can get a shot of pulling this. If it's anything like the other one, it came off with no problem, and no, it's stuck. Alright, so with just a little bit of hammering, I was able to get this clutch, I don't know, whole case, transmission, whatever, cover off. Originally it was kind of stuck, but then I got a putty knife and a rubber mallet and kind of worked at the top here where there was a gap up here. And, you know, I'm taking it slow on this repair. This was probably not strictly necessary at this point right now, but really glad to see that there's basically zero of the issue I was worried about. You know, these chain tensioners have an issue a lot of times where it falls back and runs into the clutch sort of cover plate, and you know, gets damage all along here, all kinds of damage. Don't see any of that here, which is cool, and nor does it appear to have any kind of fix that I've seen on YouTube. I'm definitely not an expert on this issue yet, so it could have some type of device that I'm just missing, but it looks like the original from what I've seen. And no damage in here, everything incredibly clean. Also, this gasket is really, really old, so I guess it's good that it hasn't been opened, you know, maybe possibly ever. Of course, now it's going to be a lot of work to scrape this gasket back, you know, put on the new one, but I'm not at all, that's way in the future, so for now I'll just get it closed back up and try to turn the engine over. We're back down under the timing cover this time. Let the Marvel Mystery Oil sit in the cylinders overnight, and I'm not 100% sure how this is going to work, so I took out the boots just in case that oil splashes back as I rotate the engine, and I stuck some paper towels in there. You know, it's not like I'm going to run the starter this time, so I don't think there'll be much splashing of oil, but just in case there is any, I don't want those boots to get all nasty when they feel nice and clean and rubbery. Actually, I don't even know if they're original, they feel so clean. So let's give it a shot here, cranking over the engine, see how it feels. Alright, so I have this is a 24-inch, 24 millimeter socket and a 1/2-inch breaker bar. And let's see which way is this supposed to rotate? Counterclockwise, yeah, which actually makes sense if you think about which way the wheels turn. I think on a bike. So let's feel it. Feels good. Feels good. Turning over. Nothing. It feels all right. Feels smooth. Wow, really smooth. Yeah, I realize now that the paper towels are probably unnecessary. If you've ever turned over like a single cylinder engine, it reaches a point where it wants to kind of jump to the next position. There's some positions are highly stable and some positions are, I guess it wants to rotate over. Just something about the balance of that one cylinder and the crankshafts. But with these 4 cylinders, I realize a lot of friction. It's not going to jump and spit out any oil at me, I realize now. Just keep turning that over. Oh, there, it did kind of got a little bit more of a push there. Feel it coming to life. Man, that is smooth. Luckily don't hear any knocking, anything like, I don't know if we would anyway, probably at these extremely low speeds, but wow. It's nice. I don't know about the compression on this engine, so I don't hear any like those little sucking vacuum type sounds you sometimes hear. That could just be the paper towels or the fact that there's no spark plugs in here. There it gets a little hard, but then again I'm rotating over 1,000cc engine. Alright, so when the battery gets here next week, I'm going to check out the electrical and then ignition and see if I can, or not ignition, just see if I can spin the engine over with no gas, no spark, to test compression. But then I noticed, I don't know if this is going to be visible, side glass down here is on completely empty, or it appears to be none in there, so I don't think that's right, but I don't know how much actual oil is in there. So found some old Yama lube that I had around, which is not the right oil that it calls for at all, but you know what, this is just going to be a cleaning up oil. Eventually I'll put the right oil in there, if I actually get it to run for any length of time. If it were running, the fact that there's no coolant in the bike would be the bigger issue, or at least how it appears to be. So that's kind of a moot point anyway, but you know, better than automotive oil.